I'm very in the weeds. I still code. Nothing is beneath me. Like I'll do anything and I will never ask anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. There wasn't really a way to just sync data continuously. After doing a lot of research, talking to one of my best friends from college, we realized that this was a problem that's pretty pervasive in the B2B space in general, and no one was really solving it.
In the early days, you guys reached out to like 10,000 people to find your first engineers.
I still do that now. So every weekend I'll turn on Southern Charm or whatever Vanderpump Rules, and I'll just go and source all of LinkedIn. Recruiting is really important for our business.
I honestly feel like if like as a girl you haven't been referred to as bitchy, you're like not gonna make it. Like it's
Yeah,
like
and
a
also like you can be like fun bitchy too. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah,
yeah, no,
things
totally.
definitely get more interpreted as being bitchy.
You were chief of staff right before Merge. I feel like chief of staff is such a black box role.
A chief of staff role can vary a lot at every single company. Some CEOs just need someone to yell at everyone and just make sure things are getting done.
Welcome back to Get the Check. Today we're talking to Shensi Ding, who's one of the co-founders of Merge API, which lets you seamlessly connect hundreds of APIs and is backed by investors like Excel, NEA, and Addition. We're just going to be chatting through what it was like founding Merge as well as the product and your personal journey. So I'm really excited to get started.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I wanted to just start by asking you how you got the idea for Merge.
I was working at a startup in San Francisco in the cybersecurity space. It was called Expanse, originally called KDM, and I was working as chief of staff to the CEO. And one issue that we started having around 2019 was just not having any integrations. At the time, I believe the only functionality we had was just to download a CSV and export data, but there wasn't really a way to just sync data continuously. And it was starting to impact our sales team. And after doing a lot of research, talking to one of my best friends from college, we realized that this was a problem that's pretty pervasive in the B2B space in general, and no one was really solving it. So, yeah, I started doing a lot of research, and that's how we came up with the idea for Merge.
Yeah, that's super cool. And then I know you've mentioned before that when you went to like raise your first few rounds, that VCs were not like as bullish on the idea as you guys were and didn't think that it would work. I'm so curious about that because it seems like it was like a clear market gap and I would think it'd be like the type of company a VC would love.
At the time, there was a few really popular workflow companies. Like Trey and Workato were just super prevalent and they were raising a lot of money and these fundraising rounds were very popular as well. Same with Zapier. And I think because of how popular these companies were, it just became assumed that this was the right way to solve everything. And this was also the way the industry was going to continue to go. But one thing that I was noticing was changing over time is the onus of offering integrations was moving from the buyer to the vendor because there were just so many options out there. And so I think a lot of VCs, because they don't use a lot of software, they just weren't able to see that. And they just assumed whatever was getting the most funding was the answer.
That makes sense. So how are you able to find the right partners in the end?
You just really have to meet as many people as possible. And to be honest, you can't really change a lot of people's minds. A lot of their existing beliefs will. Oh, we just closed the deal. Sorry. Can you ask that question again? Sorry.
Yes, of course. Do you guys like ring a bell in the
We
office when you
do.
close
It's
a
really
deal?
cute. Like our team gets so excited and we got like a big gong and it distracts everyone. But it is really, really cute and very
When you get
fun.
like a new customer or
Yeah, whenever a deal is signed, and especially for the younger AEs, like it's such like a fun experience. I've actually never rang the gong before, but it's like I can see the joy and like recognition that they get when they ring the gong. So it's very, very cute. Yeah.
that is very cute. No, I was just asking how you ended up finding the right partners.
Yeah, and I think we did have some conversations where we saw them slightly changing their mind or becoming a little bit more curious and digging in. But like overall, like if their point of view is that workflow products were the answer, we couldn't change their mind. But for some, they had an inkling that we were correct. They started hearing from their portfolio companies that this was increasingly becoming more and more of an issue. And so they started doing research and gave us a chance. I will say at the seed stage, existing relationships go a long way. I used to be an investor. I also, as chief of staff, I had exposure to a lot of investors. And so it wasn't a huge surprise, though VCs that ended up really engaging with us were the ones that knew me and Gil already. They just had a little bit more confidence that there was an idea there. They were also more willing to do the research.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And speaking of your background, I know you were chief of staff right before Merge. And I was just curious about, I feel like chief of staff is such a black box role for people that haven't done it. Like what you think the value proposition of it is and how it affected like your ability to go on to found your own company.
So a chief of staff role can vary a lot at every single company. Sometimes it's more of an administrative role. Sometimes it's more of just like fill in the blank and do whatever they need role. And sometimes it's more of just like a like a trust like chief strategy role. For me, it was very much just like whatever the CEO needed help with, I would help out with. So it ranged from like recruiting, finding an office, to like prepping him for all of his meetings, to helping him hire his executive assistant. It really ran the gamut. Like I just tried to do everything and anything to help him out. It depends on the CEO, and sometimes some CEOs will need like a really strategic executive assistant. Sometimes someone needs just another person to execute on things that they just don't have time to do. And sometimes they just need someone to yell at everyone and just make sure things are getting done. So the value proposition definitely depends on the CEO.
Do you feel like it influenced? I know you talk a lot online about like your leadership style. Do you think it influenced your leadership style at all, like this year that you're working for?
Yeah, he was very inspirational. He was super well read, super, super smart. And because of how well read he was able to be very persuasive. So I think that taught me a lot about just like really deeply understanding your products and understanding the industry, because just knowing things makes you influential. It makes you be able to persuade customers to take a bet on you. Every time there was an emergency, we would trust him because we just felt inherently faith that he would be able to save the situation. And 9 times out of 10, he was. So I think seeing that perspective where I was like, okay, whenever there's an issue, Tim is going to be able to solve it. Now, whenever there's an issue and I have to solve it, I don't have that same confidence in myself that, I had in Tim. But I know now that everyone around me thinks they can believe in me in the same way. And so I know I have a duty to really try my best in those save situations. But yeah, he was very, very inspirational overall.
That makes sense. How would you describe like your leadership style?
I'm very in the weeds. Like I still code. I'm nothing is beneath me. Like I'll do anything, and I will never ask anyone to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. I also oftentimes think the best way for me to lead people is for me to also know what I'm talking about. So I'll always try to do a role before giving like extreme direction. Like I'll really do anything. I'll source, I'll outbound, I'll code. I definitely join a lot of sales calls, but I really want to lead by example by showing people like I will work harder than all of you so that you feel like when you work hard, I'm not like leaving you with the bag.
In the early days, you were doing a lot of like outsourcing and you guys reached out to like 10,000 people or something to find your first engineers. Was that like you and your co-founder Gil reaching out, or like was it contractors?
No, it was outbounding. So Gil and I, we would use a lot of outbounding tools and just reach out, send email sequences, just scour LinkedIn looking for candidates. And I still do that now. So every weekend I'll turn on Southern Charm or whatever Vanderpump Rules, and I'll just go and source all of LinkedIn. Recruiting is really important for our business. There definitely have been periods where I haven't been able to be as involved in it, but just overall, like if you are willing to go through and find all the potential candidates, you can find the best people.
Oh, like you individually will still go on LinkedIn profiles and
Oh
like choose
yeah,
them to.
every day.
Wow.
I know. You gotta do what you
Wow.
gotta
I
do.
No, yeah, you really do, but I feel like Merge is like pretty big now. So that's interesting. Have you had like periods of time where you've depended more on like internal or external like recruiting help and felt like you needed to get back involved? Because I'm curious, like when you think about the trade-off between like, 30 minutes of your time is so valuable to the company and what you allocate it to.
There were times where other things were more important, like we had certain teams that needed more attention, or like certain parts, certain other projects needed more from me. But right now, and also at the beginning of the company, recruiting was just the most critical thing to the business. And so sourcing, and especially since my response rates are so high, and it teaches me a lot about what the candidate quality looks out there. It's sometimes the best use of my time. Like for me, I was over the past few months, we've been able to learn a lot about recruiting processes, what we can improve, where we can source certain candidates from, how the markets have changed. It's just data that really helps you become a better leader.
That makes sense. I've heard recently that a lot of like founders and stuff will give their LinkedIn to like their chief of staff or like whoever's like doing recruiting so that it like looks like the founder's reaching out to you. But I guess you heard it first. If someone hears from you, it's really you.
It's really me. It's really me. And like I also think it's just a good muscle to have. If you're a founder, you're not willing to spend hours outbounding, well, you're gonna have to do it for sales too. And you just really have to get that pain tolerance for just going on LinkedIn, going through every company, going through every person, finding the right person. Because in the end, like a lot of it's just prospecting.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. I also wanted to talk about something you said earlier that you like very lightly skipped over, which was like, oh yeah, and then I started like coding for the company. So I know you do have a computer science background, like you studied that at Columbia, but then after you went into like banking, investing, chief of staff, I'm curious like how you made the decision to get back into coding since your co-founder is technical?
So there was like a 3 week gap between me leaving my job and Gil leaving his job before we got started with Merge. And during that time, I was trying to catch up on like some technical concepts and try to refresh a little bit of my coding, but that's nowhere to the same extent as like actually building anything. And I wasn't 100% sure if it would even be useful for me to be able to code because I just assumed there was enough to do where I wouldn't have time. But I was totally wrong. There's literally nothing to do, especially in the very beginning, and you are planning on being in stealth, then coding. So yeah, I just had to do it. It was really hard. 5 years of not working like, and I've never worked professionally as a software engineer. It's really hard to like pick that back up and get the muscle, and you're super slow and you ask stupid questions. But now with AI, like it's so easy. You can ask so many questions. The world is your oyster, and you can ask like, what does this mean? And like this code snippet, like why is this not working? The world is really your oyster now. So I think for any non-technical founder who is scared of diving in, it's just you're gonna have the most free time in the beginning before you have any customers. So that's the best time to at least try. And so now, because I'm able to do that, it's such a big unlock when certain situations where like, why is this project taking so long? I can just go into the code base and see like, oh, it's a shit show. That's why it's taking so long. Or I can also just do it myself if I see any bugs or anything that I want to improve over time because I know my team is really busy. So any capacity that I can help add goes a long way. So like why not? And especially because there's nothing more annoying than pointing out like a little bug that is so easy to fix. You should just do it yourself.
I wanted to ask you a little bit about your hiring philosophy since you've been so involved, like even till today, in terms of like what you look for and also like if you've been able to maintain that same bar or like list of attributes over time since like you guys have scaled a lot as well.
We always look for people who are very committed and care a lot about what they're doing. You can see it from someone's resume. If someone doesn't really like commit to any companies, they don't like commit to a certain role. They likely won't change when they join your company. We also can tell in the interview process, like, are you interviewing Merge for what reason? Like, what is your intent? What are you optimizing for in like your next stage of life? And if someone's just looking for money, if they're only looking for something that's not going to last, then they're probably not going to be a good fit. And so it is really tough. Sometimes we'll be in situations where we really want to make a hire, but someone's just not clearly not committed or clearly not going to be energizing or a good culture add. We just have to pass. It's always better to find that person who's a really great match, who can stay at the company for a really long time and really loves being here, than settling for someone.
Do you feel like you've made any mistakes in hiring where like looking back on it you're like, "Oh, I wish I approached hiring in like this different way?"
Oh, so many mistakes. Yeah, absolutely. I think some mistakes that oftentimes happen are like you'll hire a leader and like you really want to make sure that they're happy and they might bring like people that they've worked with before, but they might not be a good fit for your company. It's really important that you still interview, and even if it doesn't make your relationship with that leader like set off to the best start, you can't just let people join your company just because it was a good fit for someone else. Like each company is a little bit different, and you as the founder are just the best person to know that. So absolutely, we've definitely made some mistakes, and also we always make mistakes in situations where we really want to fill a role. We just make a hire quickly. That's always where we make mistakes.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then I'm curious because I feel like probably when Merge started, it's like a lot of people might not have had full conviction in the company. So you're naturally selecting for people that have like really high buy in and you're like 10,000 cold emails to the first engineers. And now it's like you guys probably get a lot of inbound of people that want to join. And I imagine it's like becomes harder over time to filter through like what someone's, to your point, intentions are.
We do get a lot of inbounds, and it's true. Our recruiters are really good at just mentioning like the really bad parts about merch up front, and that oftentimes does filter out a lot of people. Like we'll just say like, "Hey, you're going to be in the office 5 days a week. You're going to work really hard. Shensi and Gil are really intense, and you're going to be working near the founders. Like, how do you feel about that?" And it's always something that we really try to mention up front because like this person's going to be adding so much value to the team. Like we're going to really invest in them as well, and we really care a lot about every single person that joins the team. So it's really important that it's mutually a good fit.
To your point about like you and Gil as well being like intense leaders, do you feel like that's ever backfired?
The intensity has definitely changed over time in different ways, just given the size. Like when you're smaller, you can be intense in a different way because everyone knows you better. And so they're more understanding, they're more empathetic. But as the company gets bigger, you can be intense in like another way. Um, but it has to be a little bit more selective because again, people just don't know you as well. And then now at the stage, of course, it was like an adjustment period, but people just don't know me to the same extent. And so I can be intense, but it has to be to a select group of people, or in like a different way.
I wanted to shift a little bit from like your journey to also asking about the product. So I know Merge is using AI. Like I saw a funny tweet from you about how you're using it for customer support so your employees don't get abused, which is like super funny because that's like part of what I work on personally in my job, and so I'm the one getting abused. But I was just curious, like where you guys are using AI. Is it like more internal, more in the product, or like both?
Both, yeah. So we use AI a lot for like finding any knowledge or any internal context. So we use AI search products very intensely. Pretty much every single all hands we tell everyone like usage for this product should be every single day. It's absolutely critical. There's so many different things that you can do with this. So we really, really try to push team members to be as productive as possible with using AI search. And then of course in our product as well, we use AI a lot for like different testing methods. For you need like research for integrations and then of course customer success like questions too so yeah, as you saw, like sometimes there'll be questions that will come in and like it's pretty sometimes where it's in like a help center article or it's pretty easy to find, so it can save our team a lot of time.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then how has the AI boom like changed your customer makeup and how does that like affect your company?
It's been absolutely crazy. Every single customer is now some form of an AI company. So it used to go where every single company that would use us was usually just using us for one or two categories, and you could just tell immediately like what the category was. Like, oh, it's like a recruiting tool. They were probably using us for ATS, or like, oh, it's an HR tool. Probably using us for HRIS. But now a company will come up to us and they're in like the HR space and they're launching AI search. So now they need like file storage and ticketing and CRM and all these different use cases like I never really expected, because AI is just so data hungry. So inherently, you need every single form of customer data that's possible. The best way to pull that data is through integrations. And so we're just seeing a lot of interest coming inbound for a lot of different use cases that I just never really expected, which is really exciting.
How does that like affect your guys' product roadmap, if at all?
So the amount of data that is required and the syncing frequency has to be higher because of privacy and just because of sensitivity of some of the data. It's really important that like you're not accidentally seeing someone's like one-on-one notes to be through AI search, or you're seeing someone's compensation because the permissions weren't set correctly. So we have to do a lot of QA and testing to a different degree than we did when we were only selling to small startups and it was admin only.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask you about that because, like you said, you started with like a lot of startups as customers, and then now you probably have a lot of AI companies, whether they're startups or not. But you've also expanded in a lot of other ways. Like I noticed over time, you have a lot of like financial services companies that you work with, like Ramp and stuff. And I was curious how you guys like won the right to build in those areas.
We won from just offering the best product. There's no other way to compete than just having that and also the best customer success. Having a really good customer success team can oftentimes also be a moat. For a lot of these customers, we've been working with them now for multiple years. And as they grew, we've also grown. And we've also expanded a lot on our security posture and our scalability, which has also allowed us to then jump to other larger companies as well.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And is the sales motions probably different as well, right? When you're like starting to sell to enterprise clients.
Completely different, and it's yeah, it was such a big learning experience for me and also for Gil. But when we first got started, like you're just selling to startups, so you just sell to the founders. It's easy. They're like your friends. Like you're just like showing them, and you're just like texting them. But when you're moving to enterprise customers, the way you communicate is completely different. You have to show up in person a lot, and you also have to understand their like email communication and how what's important to them and what features you need to emphasize and how you emphasize value and like budgeting and like legal. It's all a completely different game, and it was a big transformation for our business, but one that's very worth it when you do need to do it.
For our listeners who like maybe have not been a user before, what is like a user story of like the pain points a customer would have and then like when they decide to onboard onto Merge?
Absolutely. So I'll give an example of Ramp. So Ramp is actually one of our early customers, and in the expense management space, the way that a lot of these credit card companies make money is not through like a SaaS platform fee; it's through transactions. So you really want every single person at a company to be using the credit cards and to be paying for everything with these credit cards. But what can happen is if you don't have every single employee onboarded, you just end up having a leaky funnel issue where you'll sign someone up and you just don't have the transaction volume that you were expecting. So Ramp came to us around 2021 asking for HRIS integrations because they wanted to make sure that once they sign on a customer, every single employee would be automatically provisioned and deprovisioned. You'd be able to pull org chart information, location information, in case you wanted to mail the credit cards, and it would help them a lot with onboarding. And they if they didn't use Merge, they would have to end up hiring a lot of engineers. They would have to pay these engineers a lot. They'd have to maintain the integrations permanently. Customer success would continue having issues and bugs because integrations always have edge cases, and engineers would never be able to fully let go of this integration. So yeah, they came to us, and for the past few years, we've been working with them to help them with this functionality, and it's been really great.
That's awesome. Ramp is actually one of our sponsors, so it
Oh,
probably sounds like
cool.
I made you pick them, but I did not. um, yeah, no, that is really cool, and that makes a lot of sense. And then I also wanted to ask you, like, what do you think your future customers are using right now? Are they using a competitor? Are they doing it internally?
Our future customers have hired a large team of engineers and are building the integrations in-house.
When Merge started, was that also true? Like, has that always been the profile of your next customers?
Usually, yeah. There was a period where embedded workflow companies were starting to get more popular, but that has very clearly not shown to not work. So we no longer see that anymore, but we also mostly saw that on like the startup side.
I also wanted to ask you about being a first time founder. Like, what made you take the leap? Like, was that, I guess, in your life, like a scary thing where you're like, wow, like, I'm not sure if I want to found a company, and then like you made the leap, or was it like you always kind of knew that was something you wanted to do?
It wasn't something I always knew I wanted to do. It's definitely very scary, especially because I had a great job. I really liked it. I was getting paid well, and my co-founder was also in a similar situation. So for us to leave had to be something really worth it. But it was also a really great time in our lives. We were still young, so we had a lot of energy. We also were both had experience managing and also firing people, and having that is really helpful when you become a first-time founder. If you don't have any management experience and you haven't fired someone before, I think you just become a little bit sloppier with your hiring because you don't understand how painful it is for both sides when you do have to terminate someone. So it was just like good time overall in our careers, life, age, and we had a really good idea. So everything kind of came together for us to do that, but otherwise we wouldn't have done it.
Not that this was like the reason for you, but I feel like a lot of times when I talk to like women that are founders, they're like less likely to say it was like always something that they wanted to do from like day one. And I'm just curious, like how being like a Series B female founder has like been. Like, do you feel like that has been like, do you feel like that identity impacts that journey, or like do you feel like it hasn't really? And I know like your co-founder's a guy, so like you probably see that comparison as well.
It definitely impacts family planning a little bit. Like it's hard to plan for like, oh, when can we start a family? When can we get married? Like you just don't have like we didn't have a wedding, we just didn't have time. So there's certain sacrifices that end up happening. I also travel a lot, so you end up spending a lot of time away from like your husband or your partner. So that's something, but it's no different. And also like when we have kids, like obviously a lot of the responsibility ends up on the woman. So it'll be something that we'll have to take into account. My husband and my co-founder are both very understanding and very helpful. So when that time does come, like we'll be able to figure it out. But it always impacts the journey, and especially when it comes to like certain customer negotiations, certain customer interactions, like you have to take that into account. And sometimes it can be an advantage too. So there's pros and cons to everything, and you just have to take it as you will.
Yeah, I saw an interview where you said like sometimes like people will like refer to women or like you in situations like this as like bitchy, and I was like, I honestly feel like if like as a girl you haven't been referred to as bitchy, you're like not gonna make it. Like it's
Yeah,
like
and
a
also like you can be like fun bitchy too. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah,
yeah, no,
things
totally.
definitely get more interpreted as being bitchy, and people also feel like they can like you're their like mom, and like you owe them your like to be their therapist, and that's just like not the case. If you wouldn't feel the same way if it was like a male founder, but there's pros and cons to everything because also like I think that there are some benefits to being a woman where like I can sense feelings much more easily and like what the vibe is of certain people. And I'm also able to create like an environment where everyone feels like very like nurtured and like loved, which is also a benefit for the company culture and is a little bit harder to do with like the male leader.
No, that totally makes sense. We talked about that on our podcast at some point because like Mark Zuckerberg went on an interview and he was talking about like masculine versus like feminine energy in the office. And I know like what he said was kind of crazy, but I feel like it did get me thinking about how like there's a lot of benefit of having like both like a maternal and a like more masculine side of things like in an office, like whether it comes from like a guy or a girl or whoever. Like
Yeah, absolutely. There's pros and cons for everything. Yeah.
yeah. No, totally. And then I think the last thing I wanted to ask you on that point is just like in terms of being a first time founder, I know you said like you don't think you would ever do it again. Do you still maintain that or do you think you might change your mind ever?
Oh yeah, no fucking way. I can't do this again. I have burned the boats. This is it. And I also think is should never join a company where the founder's already thinking about their next company because then you're fucked. So you really need to be making sure, like, is this person also is the founder that I'm joining? Are they committed to this? Because I've seen a lot of like the past few years have been tough for a lot of companies in the tech space, and you just see these founders giving up left and right. Like, are you really going to join a company where the founder has given up? Like, then why would you stay? Why would you stay there? And for me, again, this is the only company I'm going to start. Like that, this is it. So I'm not like invested in any other opportunity.
That brings me to our speed round, which is just like a fun little round we do with our interviewees at the end. So we heard you've been flying to Vegas a lot for work
Oh my
recently. Are
God.
you, is it, it's like to find customers, right?
It's for different conferences and like different
Okay.
partnership, yeah, partnership opportunities.
Okay, cool. I feel like I have like mixed feelings on Vegas. Like Vegas is not my favorite city to have to go to, but I don't know how you feel. But what I was gonna ask you is if you're net up or down at the casino.
I'm still net up. Yeah, I've only done it. I've only tried it once, and I've been very, very lucky. But probably, of course, I'm up my first time. So we'll
Of
see.
course.
TBD on how it goes long term.
Was it beginner's luck or not? We will stay tuned to find out. And then I had to ask you because I feel like I've seen you post about so many TV shows, what your favorite TV show is to watch when you're sending like outbound or doing like any busy work.
Right now, I'm really into Southern Charm. I'm on season four. But I did watch like all the seasons of Vanderpump Rules in like 4 weeks because like every time I would go home, I would like start recruiting, and then on the weekends, like I had no life and I was just recruiting, and I would just watch Vanderpump Rules. But yeah, I'm a Bravo girly through and through. But yeah, Southern Charm right now is really lit.
I've never watched either, but I became like really invested in Paige. I don't know her last name. You might know it, but her
Sorbo.
like breakup. Yes,
Yeah.
her breakup because she's just like so funny, and I get all her podcast clips, and I just like die laughing. So yeah, I don't know if you have ever seen them or know what I'm talking about, but she has like a podcast now. So yeah.
Yeah, I watch Summer House
Um,
too. I'm not afraid to say it.
And then I've also heard you say that starting Merge in some ways has been like a traumatic experience. And I was wondering if you have any like fun, not fun, but like any traumatic story that like looking back on it now is like a little more lighthearted that you're able to
Um,
share.
I mean, it's fine now because it worked out, but there have been several situations where we were like, oh my God, we're so fucked. And then we ended up powering through. I mean, there's so many. Like at every single time it feels so devastating, or it's like you lose a candidate, or like you lose a customer to a competitor. Or like, you know, there's just so many different things that are horrible, but none of them are lighthearted, to be honest. But they're just okay because they worked out. But I don't regret any of them because otherwise we wouldn't be where we are today. But yeah, I don't know if I have anything like off the top of my head that's like super lighthearted, to be honest.
Okay, no worries. That totally makes sense. And then I just wanted to give you a chance to say, like, for people interested in joining Merge or becoming customers, like, where can they go and find you guys?
Yes, you can find us at www.merch.dev. You can also just email me anytime at shensi@merch.dev.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This was great. And for anyone that's interested in Merge, you can check out the website.
Thank
Great.
you.